Hey guys, sorry this follow-up has taken so long. I've been pretty busy with moving, with trying to figure out exactly what happened at Indianapolis so that I can talk to you guys knowledgeably about it to try to prevent stuff like this from happening again. So again, I'm sorry it's been so many weeks, but ready to talk about it and work through it so this doesn't happen again. I apologize for what went on. It was very frustrating. It's pretty embarrassing from a business standpoint to have both cars have problems like that. It's something I've never seen before in all the years, since these cars first started being raced in the late 90s. I've never seen or had this happen where there was so many issues over the course of a weekend. So just wanted to go over that with you and apologize again for what happened. Hopefully we don't ever have that issue again. I'll just talk real quick about the issues and then I can kind of show you what's happening. The Lexus transmissions, both of them broke due to gears being chipped. In both cases it was third gear that was chipped, and once that happens it starts just eating away the transmission. It chips more teeth, more shavings, and as you can imagine, that metal shavings and the debris, not only are they going through everything, through the bearings, through the other gears, but they get stuck in the synchros, and that soft brass synchro does not like having anything metal like that that's not smooth that it can rub against. So it starts tearing up synchros, starts tearing up the shift forks, bearings. So all of that was just the product of a chipped tooth started it, and then that just leads to a catastrophic failure when we keep going and driving on the transmissions like that. So both of those were a result of a chipped tooth on the transmission that just led to a catastrophic failure. The first Super engine, it had an over-rev, a misshift. It went from, instead of going to fourth, driver went to second, and it turned 7,800 RPM. And we've learned over time as we've had misshifts and over revs, and we've strengthened areas, but we just seem to find the next place that's weak. So it floated the valves with that kind of RPM, and it bent the valves, a couple of valves. So that's why you're able to keep driving for the rest of the race. It probably, someone that's very experienced in that car that's in it all the time might have noticed it down a little bit on power, but it's just a product of that many RPMs and those motors not being made to turn those. So it bent those valves. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, so the majority of that engine is salvageable. So I'm currently rebuilding that and getting it ready to go back in the car as a primary motor, and then we'll have a spare ready for both cars. The second Lexus motor, or the second Super motor, was, kind of go with me here, it was also the result of an over rev. However, that over rev did not happen at Indianapolis. That's our spare motor. The last time it was used was at MSR Houston, so it's been almost 2 years. At that time we were not keeping data. We didn't have a way to store the data, so we had no way of tracking over revs, but that engine was over revved, and at the time it stretched, in this particular instance, it stretched the rod bolts, or a rod bolt, on the number 2 cylinder, but it kept going. It wasn't so bad that it caused it to be down on power. So we finished that race at MSR Houston, and then we had another motor, so we put that back in the trailer to be as a spare, not knowing that it was over revved. So we put it in for Indianapolis, and just over time that stretched bolt starts to weaken and weaken and weaken. And unfortunately Nadimi was the unlucky one that was in the car when it happened, but it stretches and eventually will break the head off of that bolt, and so there's only one bolt that was holding the cap onto the rod, and we're just continuing to drive it, and it's stretching that bolt, and a couple laps before it blew up, the piston hit the valve and bent a valve, so it was starting to lose power, and you can see on the video that it was losing power, and then it finally broke that bolt, that last bolt, and then it shot the rod out the side of the block. So another catastrophic failure. So all 4 of those failures were a result of shifting issues. You probably caught on to that already. And most of the problems that we have are a result of shifting issues. It's becoming a bigger problem, and it's becoming very frustrating for me. We've never had the transmission failures like this, but the shifting, rather than getting better and better, seems to be getting worse and worse. So if you're not rev matching, heel and towing properly, then consider yourself to be part of the problem. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is becoming very expensive for myself. It has been very expensive for Mike. If you're not properly shifting, if you're chirping the tires when you downshift, you drop the clutch and the tires are chirping, that's a problem. If you're downshifting and letting the clutch out above the rev limiter, so the engine is being over revved and it's shocking that drivetrain, that's a problem. And watching the video, my wife will tell you, I had to stop. It was very frustrating and was making me sick to my stomach, watching some of the shifts and hearing the motor and hearing the transmission. So from this point forward, we're going to have to work on our shifting. I thought I was doing a good job of explaining it verbally to people in person. I obviously was not. Because of all of this, we're going to have to institute some monetary policies for common issues that we see with poor shifting, whether it's a bad habit or somebody just doesn't know any better, or they're just being extremely rough on the transmission. We're going to come up with some kind of monetary cost that when we watch the videos, if we see this happening, there's no question the driver's going to be charged X amount of money, because I or somebody's got to go through and check the mechanical pieces, whether it's an engine or whether it's a transmission. We have to do some tests to make sure that there isn't an issue happening. So we're going to have to institute some kind of policy besides me just telling everybody how to drive and how to be easy on the transmission. That hasn't worked, so we're just going to have to change it up and try to find something that does work. So most of the problems we have are, like I said, are related to shifting. I'm going to work on another video. I'm going to try to get somebody else to do it, so you're not having to listen to me all the time, because I've said this stuff already. So I want somebody else to talk you through how to shift if you can't heel and tow. There are ways to race. I've raced professionally with guys that don't heel and tow, and they're not tearing stuff up, they're not spinning the car, they're not locking the wheels. So there's a way to do it. So if you're not capable of heel and towing, you don't have a car that you can practice on and figure it out, you know, you can still race without it, but you need to change how you're shifting. Let me quickly go back. I should have said this earlier about that transmission issue. The reason those gears are chipping is, if you can kind of imagine, one of the issues we've had, say we're going into turn 1 at Indianapolis, you're in 5th gear, somebody who's not shifting very well, I saw it several times in the video, they'll push the clutch in while they're braking, they have the clutch in all the way until they get ready to turn in, and then they put it in 2nd or 3rd, and then dump the clutch. So the motor's at idle RPM, 1000 RPM call it, and then when they dump the clutch, the motor, transmission, clutch all have to immediately get up to the 4, 5, 6,000 RPM that the actual car is moving, and so that shock is causing the gears to chip, and it's something that I saw too many times, and that's what's causing it. And once we chip a tooth, there's nothing we can do to fix it. It's gonna just get worse and worse and worse. The other thing I saw, a similar thing, if you use turn 1 again, you're in 5th gear, and a driver will go hit the brakes down to 4th, and then immediately let the clutch out. They haven't slowed down below the rev limiter in 4th gear, so the RPM on the engine goes above the rev limiter. The rev limiter can't do anything because the actual wheels in the back are going faster than that. It can't just stop them. And so it'll be above the rev limiter and over rev until the car gets slowed down enough to be below the rev limiter. And that also is shocking the drivetrain and over revving the engine. So kind of a double whammy there. So those are the two main things that I see that are causing issues, aside from just being patient and not speed shifting. We are endurance racing. We've all got to take better care. There was only 3 drivers that got their full drive stint at Indianapolis. We cannot, I know it's a risk every race we go to, but We can't do that. It's not fair to the other drivers who are not getting to drive. We need to, bring the car back to the box the way that we give it to you. We put a lot of work into preparing the cars. I need you guys to start taking some responsibility in how you drive the car. If you don't realize you're being rough on the car, then we need to have a conversation, because it's very apparent that some of you guys are driving very hard. Well, I want to say very hard, but don't have the best habits when you're shifting and braking and turning. So think about your driving and think about what you're doing. We need to get on the same page with this endurance racing. There's a car, they are great cars, but they can't be beat to death for 7, 8, 10 hours at a time without having failures. So we'll need to work on that. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and it's escaped me right now. It was real quick. One of your responsibilities as a driver. So 3 of these failures at Indianapolis were catastrophic, meaning it was bad. It was, the block, we had a rod come out of the block. The transmissions are basically completely unusable without buying mostly internal. So those are kind of catastrophic failures. All 3 of them could have just been broken pieces, not catastrophic. So as a driver, you need to be thinking about more than just your driving. You need to be listening, watching, smelling, feeling, taking note of something that may be different, because all 3 of these instances could have been caught, and we could have stopped the car and either quit early and not had these failures, or rectified them possibly to not have the failure. So that's the driver's responsibility, and I'm going to start being more stringent on that. Communication, I say that all the time. We need to know everything that's going on. If you're not telling us that things are different, we have no way of helping you understand what's going on and helping prevent issues. So if you're not communicating that you have a noise or a smell or something like that in the future, we can't tell you what to do, and there may be an instance where you're now responsible financially for the broken part, because you haven't communicated to us and given us the opportunity to prevent it from failing. So as drivers, there's more than just driving. There's a lot going on. I know this, but you've got to take on that responsibility of taking care of the car and paying attention to everything that's going on, mechanically as well as outside the car is your responsibility. So moving forward, we're going to have to tighten up on that as well. We've had too many failures lately, too many drivers miss seat time. Aside from the obvious financial issues that creates for the drivers that are paying money to drive and they're not getting to, it also looks bad for the business. And if it looks bad for the business, people will not want to come race with us. And if we don't have people racing with us, then we're not going to race. So we got to tighten up a little on that, and I'll work on that in the future. I'll come up with some common issues that I see happening, and we'll assign some kind of, unfortunately, it'll be a monetary value to when these things are happening. And if you're not okay with that, then we're not okay with you racing with us. If you're okay with that responsibility, then we want you to race with us and take care of the equipment. So that's what I have about Indy. I hate that it happened. I think we can work together and make something like that not happen again. If you have questions, please email me or call me directly. I'll be talking to you guys more about it, and like I said, I'll have a video about shifting hopefully soon to try to help prevent future problems. And because I don't like having these conversations, I don't like having to watch every minute of video. I don't like being frustrated by what I see. I want to see you guys improve. I thought I was doing a good job with that verbally, but I obviously need to take more steps in different ways, whether it's videos with other people or more feedback. We need to make sure we're on the same page for endurance racing and taking care of the equipment for everybody. So that's all I have for now. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry I had to talk about all this, but like I say, if you have any questions, give me a call, shoot me an email, and we'll figure out what's going on. Thanks.